Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be switching it up a little bit. Today we're going to be talking about the most OP champions or the strongest champions that we have seen so far in this season. So I'm going to be doing this video in the format of where I give one OP champion for each role, and then at the end of the video, I'll give one honorable mention for each role as well. So with that being said guys, let's get started. So first up, for support, I have Soraka. Soraka's always been a pretty hard champion to balance. I remember back to last season when she was like one of the worst picks for support, and everybody talked about how she was just a really bad pick and she needed a rework or something. And after she did get her rework, I feel like she's just been a really strong pick since then. She's stayed at over a 50% win rate for the longest time now. I really can't remember back to when she did drop below a 50% win rate. And that's pretty much because her kit revolves around her heals, and if they nerf her heals, then she's going to be a pretty weak champion, but if they keep them the same or if they buff them, then she's just always going to be a pretty strong pick for solo queue. She's a really easy champion to play. Her heals are targeted as well, so it just makes it really easy to use them, and it really doesn't take any skill at all. So I feel like they do need to do a little rework on Soraka or change her kit up a little bit in order for her to become more balanced. So my pick for AD carry is Kog'Maw. Now, if you guys remember back to patch 6.3 or 6.4, Kog'Maw was like extremely OP. After he did get the change to his W, he just dealt so much damage throughout all stages of the game, and you pretty much could not deal with Kog'Maw. The build of Rage Blade and Hurricane was just absolutely crazy on him, and after he did get a few nerfs to his W, and Rage Blade also did get an increase in price, he hasn't been seeing as much success, but he is still a pretty good pick right now. Next up for mid lane, I have Malzahar. So Malzahar was extremely OP in patch 6.9. They did tone him down a little bit for 6.10, but I do still think he is a really strong pick right now. Going back to 6.9 though, the fact that Malzahar could deal a ton of consistent damage with his W and his E, and he also had the ability to deal burst damage, made him a really OP pick. Usually when you look at mid lane champions, they either have good DPS, which is damage per second, or they have good burst damage. For example, when you take a look at LeBlanc, she has good burst damage, but she has really crappy DPS. And when you look at Malzahar, he has both of those in his kit, good DPS and good burst damage, so that just makes him a really strong pick. I really don't know why they changed his passive either. I feel like his passive is really strong, especially once you do get to the late game, because late game it's on a really short cooldown, like 5 or 6 seconds, so it's so hard for the enemies who do have crowd control, someone like a Malphite or a Leona, to get on Malzahar in late game team fights, and it just makes him a great pick against any team who does have a lot of CC. Next on my list, I have Kindred. So like Soraka, I feel like Kindred is one of the harder junglers or harder champions to balance in the game. Now the reason being is because she's a champion who relies on dealing damage to be successful. She doesn't have any strong crowd control in her kit. She doesn't have that AoE CC ability, and therefore I feel like if they go ahead and nerf her damage or nerf Blood Razor, then she's not going to be the strongest pick. The reason she has been strong this season is because she does a lot of percentage health damage, and she does really well against the tanks. The fact that it has been a tank meta for like a lot of the season, Kindred has been like one of the most picked and one of the most successful junglers, so she's always going to be a pretty good pick as long as they don't nerf her damage. But I feel like if they do go ahead and nerf the damage like on her Q or on her passive, then she isn't going to be the strongest pick anymore. And to round out the top 5 for top lane is Ekko. So Ekko, in my opinion, he's strong because he's just a really low risk, high reward champion. He's got great base damage on his Q and his E. They are going to nerf the base damage on his Q in 6.11, so that might bring him down in popularity and strength a little bit, but as of right now, the fact that you can deal so much damage with him and you can still build like pretty much full tank just makes him an extremely OP pick. He also can just dive into a team fight. He doesn't even have to care if the engage is good or not. If it is good, he can just keep going and keep engaging. If it's not good, then he's got his ultimate, which he can use to just back out and reset the fight or just restart. So I feel like unless they do nerf the base damage on Ekko a little bit more, he is going to stay a really good pick for top lane. First on the honorable mentions for top lane is Malphite. So Malphite hasn't been seeing the most play recently, and he hasn't been the most successful top lane pick these past few patches, but remember, this video is talking about the strongest picks in Season 6 so far, and prior to these past few patches, Malphite has had the highest win rate for any top lane champion, and he's just been a very successful pick this season. The reason being, or the reason why he has been a strong pick, is because his ultimate is just such a game-changing ability. It's just a really easy ability to use, and if you can get that off on the squishy target or on a few targets in a team fight, it can just win you the game right there. Now, I think the reason he's kind of fallen off in popularity, or he hasn't been as strong these past few patches, is because he doesn't have the best matchups in the top lane right now, and therefore if you fall behind with Malphite in the laning phase, or if your team falls behind, then it's going to be harder to carry with him, since you always want to be looking for engages with Malphite's ultimate, and if your team falls behind, you're really not going to be able to do that. Next for jungle is Amumu. So if this were a video of the most OP or the strongest champions in League of Legends history, then Amumu would probably be at the #1 spot. I really can't remember back to when Amumu had below a 50% win rate, especially for the lower elos. I guess in like Master Tier and Challenger, he's going to have below a 50% win rate, but he's just been one of the strongest junglers for such a long time now in the lower elos. The reason being is because his ultimate is just such an easy ability to use, and it's just such a strong team fight ability. The fact that you can CC like multiple targets in a team fight with your ultimate and still deal so much damage with Amumu has made him a really good pick for such a long time now. The honorable mention for mid lane is Zed. So similar to Malzahar, Zed has been one of the strongest picks these past few patches. He's got something like an 85% ban rate right now, which is pretty much unheard of. I really don't remember back to when a champion had that high of a ban rate for solo queue. In competitive play, yeah, some champions do have like 100% picker ban rate, something like Kalista, but for a champion to have that high of a ban rate for solo queue is just something you really don't see very often. They did change QSS a few patches ago to where it no longer will remove Zed's ultimate, and this is why he has been seeing a lot of bans recently. It's just so hard to deal with him in mid to late game teamfights when you're playing as AD carry, because if the Zed is fed, he's pretty much just gonna one-shot you every single teamfight, and it's just so hard to deal with him. So I think that Zed, unless they give him some sort of a rework or they change his base damage on his abilities a little bit, he's going to be a pretty strong pick for these coming patches still. The honorable mention for AD carry is Lucian. So these past few patches especially, Lucian has been an extremely strong pick. The new build on him of Youmuu's and Black Cleaver has just been very successful on him because it just synergizes really well with his kit. He can proc the Black Cleaver really easily with his passive and his ultimate. The Youmuu's also synergizes pretty well with him because it does give him that burst of movement speed, which kind of makes up for his lower auto attack range. The build also allows him to deal a lot of burst damage with his Q. In 6.11, he is getting a bit of a nerf, so we'll have to see how that affects him, whether or not he does drop in popularity and he drops in strength, but as of this patch and as of these past few patches, he has been one of the strongest AD carries. And lastly, to round out the video, my honorable mention pick for support is Blitzcrank. So Blitzcrank is similar to Amumu in the sense that I really can't remember back to when he wasn't a strong pick, especially for the lower elos. His hook is just such a strong ability because it can snowball a game out of control. All you need to do as Blitz is land one hook on the enemy AD carry or support in the laning phase, and if you get that kill, then you can start roaming with him, you can just start playing really aggressive in the laning phase, and you can just snowball a game out of control with him. Even if you do fall behind as Blitzcrank in the laning phase, if you can just get that one hook on the enemy mid or AD carry in a team fight, you could end up winning your team the game right there. So I feel like unless they do give Blitz a little bit of a rework or change his hook, he's always going to be a very strong pick, especially for the lower elos. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have not already. And also let me know down in the comment section below if you guys do agree with this list. If you don't, then let me know what your list would look like. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.